Now we will look at the second part of Chapter 5, dealing with cellular energy and chemical reactions. First, we'll need to take a look at what is energy. Energy is the capacity to cause change. Energy can take many forms, but there are two basic categories of energy: kinetic and potential. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion. This could mean physical motion, like a train speeding down a track, or the little girl swinging in the swing. When she reaches the bottom of the arc at point B, she is going as fast as she can. Thermal energy is one type of kinetic energy. It is the random movement of molecules. This random movement is the driving force for things like diffusion. When molecules move faster, they are more likely to bump into each other, and when they do, some energy is transferred between them. This transfer of energy is called heat. If you put your hand on a warm stone, or oven, the molecules in the stone are moving fast, and then those bump into the molecules in your hand. When they bump together, the heat is transferred from the area of high concentration of heat, the stone, to the area of low concentration of heat, your hand. Another form of energy is called potential energy. Think about the meaning of the word potential. If you have potential, that means you could eventually do something, but you probably aren't doing it yet. So, potential energy is the energy contained in matter because of where it is located or its physical structure that can be released. In the picture with the girl, when she reaches point A, the top of the swing, she actually stops moving backward for a brief second, and as her momentum changes from going backwards to forwards. In that microsecond, she is not moving at all. She has the highest potential energy because of how high up she is. In this section, we will be focused on potential energy stored in chemical structures. This is not because of the location, but because of the structure of the chemical. The chemical structure at the bottom is glucose. We break glucose down to release ATP to power our bodies. So some chemicals like glucose can release energy when we change its shape or break its bonds. In order to release potential energy to do work, we have to change it from potential energy stored in chemicals to the kinetic energy to move. This brings us to our discussion on the laws of thermodynamics. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy can be transformed or transferred, but it cannot be created or destroyed. This is also called the law of conservation of energy. The energy we use always enters the system from somewhere, and then eventually is lost. It's never made or destroyed. We get kinetic energy in the form of light from the sun. Plants can then transform this into potential energy stored in sugar. Then animals eat the sugar and transform it again into kinetic energy to power their bodies. But we know that not all of the energy gets transferred. Some gets lost. This is the second law of thermodynamics. Every energy transaction increases the entropy in the universe. So let's start with talking about what entropy is. Entropy is the randomness or the disorder of the universe. So every time we transform energy, it increases the randomness of the universe. A great example of this entropy is losing energy as heat. Heat is random energy transfer by random motion of molecules. Thus, it increases entropy. So every time we do an energy transaction, we lose a large amount of energy to heat, and this follows the second law of thermodynamics. If you look at the two illustrations below, you can see examples of these two laws. They both show a source of fuel being broken down to release energy. It's gasoline for the car and sugar for our cells. This is the first law of thermodynamics. The energy is not made or destroyed, it's merely converted from fuel to usable forms. And then you can see in both reactions that energy is being released as heat. Energy transformations are not very efficient, so some of the energy stored in the fuel is going to be lost as heat. This increases the randomness or entropy of the universe. Endergonic and exergonic reactions. There are two main types of chemical reactions: those that release energy and those that require energy input. Exergonic reactions release energy. This prefix is similar to exo, which means outside. This reaction releases energy to the outside. This can be seen in the bar graph comparing the potential energy of the reactants and the products. Remember that the reactants are the starting materials. So in this case, the structure of the reactants has a high potential energy. And then remember that the products are the ending materials. So in this case, the products have a lower potential energy. So when the reaction proceeds from reactants to products, energy is lost or released. Some of the energy released is lost as heat, but some of it can be harnessed in the form of ATP to power our cells. An endergonic reaction is the exact opposite. The prefix endo means inside. So for an endergonic reaction, we will have to put energy into the reaction to power it. You can see in the bar graph that the reactants have a lower potential energy, and the products have a higher potential energy. In order for the reaction to go, the reactants will have to be coupled with energy in order to reach the higher energy levels of the products. This kind of reaction requires ATP input to happen. If we add up all of the reactions in your body, endergonic and exergonic, the total of all of these reactions is called your metabolism. Culturally, we talk about metabolism in relation to how we process food and lose weight. In biology, metabolism just means all of the reactions that are going on in your body. The breakdown of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, into ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and phosphate is an exergonic reaction. It releases energy. This release of energy is what drives reactions that happen in your cell. This happens by coupling reactions together. When we need to do an endergonic reaction, like building a protein, which requires energy, then we couple it with an exergonic reaction, like breaking apart ATP. Then when they are done together, the energy from ATP powers the reaction to build the protein. The way that ATP couples with reactions is by transferring a phosphate to the reactants in the other reaction. So in the image, an endergonic reaction is building a molecule. It wants to bond the purple triangle to the green square. But that requires energy. So ATP attaches a phosphate to the purple triangle. And this changes the potential energy and increases it. And when the phosphate gets removed, the purple triangle is bonded to the green square. This same concept of transferring phosphates also applies to other cellular work, such as active transport and muscle contractions. One of the best aspects of ATP is that once it's used for energy, it can be rebuilt and used again. It is a renewable use resource. We couple the breakdown of ATP with endergonic reactions to build molecules, such as plants using light to build sugars in photosynthesis. And then we use the energy released by exergonic reactions to make new ATP. This can be seen by the energy-releasing reactions of cellular respiration when we break down sugars. The breaking and building of ATP is called the ATP cycle.